This is the chronicle of a forgotten truth, buried beneath time and stars that would thrust humanity into a conflict older than creation itself. On the darkest night in recorded history, when the skies were strangled by thunder clouds and even the moon seemed to retreat behind a curtain of dread, humanity felt the first whisper of something watching. It was not the kind of shift that could be measured by weather instruments or satellites. It was deeper, ancient, as if the soul of the world had drawn in a breath and forgotten how to exhale. No human eye had seen them arrive because they had always been here, waiting beneath the surface of reality, cloaked in a silence too absolute to belong to this universe. In the cold waters of the North Atlantic, the Norwegian research vessel Solheim sailed directly over the first breach. Dr. Elias Voss stood in the vessel's control cabin, staring at a sonar reading that should not have been possible. The sonar pings vanished into nothing. Not reflected, not absorbed. Simply gone. Voss adjusted the instruments, thinking it a malfunction, but the void beneath them only grew larger. Captain Ingrid Nygard stepped beside him, her breath shallow. The readings showed no mass, no chemical signatures, not even temperature variations. It was as if a hole had been torn into the fabric of the universe itself. Before the crew could react, a vibration thrummed through the ship's hull. Not a sound, but a feeling, like a second heartbeat pulsing inside their bones. Some fell to their knees in agony, others screamed as their ears bled. Above deck, the sea rose into a perfect column of water, defying wind and gravity alike. Within it appeared a shape without edges, a darkness that absorbed light yet glowed with impossible colors, flickering like memories of worlds no human had ever seen. The consciousness within that shape pressed against the minds of the crew, showing them flashes of entire civilizations devoured into non-existence. Cities collapsing, stars dimming, life being rewritten into silence. In that final instant before the Solheim vanished in a silent implosion, a message was spoken directly into the minds of those present, a message not heard but known. The harvest begins. The disappearance of the vessel spread quickly across the globe, but governments scrambled to suppress the truth. It was reported as a tragic storm, yet too many had intercepted the anomalous transmissions. Too many had seen strange disturbances in the sky over the Atlantic, rolling auroras of color not found in the natural spectrum, spiraling as if drawn by invisible hands. The world's most powerful governments secretly assembled, summoning experts in astrophysics, quantum theory, and exobiology. At the head of the investigation was Dr. Mara Ellison, a woman whose research had once been dismissed as speculative mythology. Ellison stood in front of a holo screen, watching the frame-by-frame satellite capture of the Solheim's disappearance. There was no debris, no explosion, only a buildup of quantum energy followed by annihilation. It matched a signal she had studied 12 years earlier. The first deep space signal, clearly not of human origin. It had been dismissed as background radiation. She knew now that it had been a warning: humanity is the last flame. The ancient message, barely translated, referenced a cycle repeated across galaxies. Intelligent species emerged, reached technological maturity, and were then harvested by an ancient power, consumed at the moment of their greatest potential. But the message identified one anomaly in the cycle, one species that had not been harvested: humanity. Ellison wasn't sure if that made humanity chosen, or simply the next target. Across the world, strange phenomena intensified. People reported seeing shapes in mirrors that were not their own reflections, figures with elongated skulls and eyes like collapsing stars. A child in Tokyo began speaking in an ancient language, describing entities that devoured thought and drank memory. In Antarctica, seismic equipment picked up rhythmic pulses beneath the ice shelf, pulses too perfectly timed to be natural. It was a signal. Something beneath the earth was awakening. Then, without warning, every device on Earth activated, powered or not, connected or inert, and spoke with one voice. It was neither mechanical nor biological. It was the voice of inevitability. This planet has reached cognitive maturity. Your ascendance marks the termination of your cycle. You are the 1780-26 species. Prepare for integration into the continuum of consumption. Your resistance is irrelevant. Your memories will be archived. Your individuality will be dissolved. As the message ended, reality itself seemed to recoil. The skies tore open in rifts of darkness, and from them descended entities of shadow and infinite hunger, not ships but manifestations of the harvester's will. They were not conquerors, they were collectors, and humanity was their harvest. But in that moment, as despair washed across the globe, a spark ignited within the human spirit. Not surrender, something the harvesters had long forgotten existed: rage. Humanity had always believed itself to be a child of Earth, a fortunate accident of biology and time. But as the skies burned with rifts in space and colossal silhouettes moved behind the clouds, the truth slowly clawed itself out of the dark archives of forgotten history. In the depths beneath Switzerland, where the European Organization for Particle Acceleration had long conducted secret experiments, a vibration echoed through caverns older than stone itself. Mara Ellison stood frozen as the walls around her began to glow, not with electricity but with memory. The stone shifted, reconfiguring itself into patterns she had seen only once before on the ruins discovered in a meteorite fragment found beneath Antarctic ice. The walls were machinery, not rock. A pulse of light surged outward across continents, awakening similar structures buried deep beneath the Sahara, the Amazon, Siberia, and the ocean floor. These were not human creations. They were seeds left here by an ancient race, not as benevolent guardians, but as soldiers who knew they would one day fall. Their last act had been to leave behind the only weapon capable of stopping the harvesters. Not a gun, not a fleet, a planet, Earth itself. As global militaries scrambled to launch missiles at the descending void entities and plasma projectiles were swallowed by the darkness like pebbles into a black hole, earthquakes tore across the globe. Civilization trembled not from the invaders, but from what was awakening beneath their feet. Cities shook, skyscrapers quivered like blades of grass, and the oceans roared as if something titanic were turning in its sleep on the ocean floor. In Geneva, General Thorne barked orders into a communicator, but his voice was drowned out as a deep metallic groan filled the chamber. The ground ruptured, splitting open as a monolithic structure rose slowly from the earth, displacing ancient rock like wet clay. It rose like a black obelisk, but as light struck its surface, circuitry patterns ignited in cascading rivers of energy. Mara stepped closer, transfixed. She could feel it, not with her mind, but with something deeper, more primal, as though the blood in her veins recognized the object. The obelisk spoke in a voice older than the planet. Phase 1 activation. Phase 2 synchronization. Phase 3 ascension protocol. General Thorne raised his weapon instinctively, but Mara grabbed his arm. "It's not here to attack us," she whispered. "It's here to prepare us." But there was no time to marvel. Above them, the sky tore open fully and colossal tendrils of shadow descended like the hands of a titanic god. They did not lash out, they simply touched the earth, and wherever they touched, matter ceased to exist. Cities vanished without a trace. Not destroyed, not even erased. As if they had never been, the harvesters had begun feeding. Human militaries responded with everything they had. Nuclear arsenals launched in minutes, railgun satellites opened fire, laser defense grids powered to maximum. But the weapons passed through the shadow forms harmlessly. The harvesters were not present in this reality alone. They existed across layers of existence, feeding on quantum possibility, devouring not just matter but potential. Mara watched in horror through the holo display as New Delhi flickered and vanished. Not even dust remained, millions of lives gone in a heartbeat. She steadied herself. Grief would come later. Now, there was only survival. "The obelisk is generating a harmonic field," she said, watching data stream across the console, a counter-frequency to the harvester waveform. "They can't consume what exists in a state of quantum lock." General Thorne narrowed his eyes. "English, Doctor, it's a shield, a real one. And if other sites awaken, they might form a global network." As if to answer her words, another obelisk erupted from beneath the Pacific Ocean, breaching the water's surface in a plume that towered miles into the sky. A third rose beneath the Amazon, vaporizing trees for miles in every direction with a burst of controlled energy. A fourth emerged from beneath the sands of the Sahara, unfolding like a colossal flower of black metal, sending luminous streams of light across continents. The world was awakening. Military craft were redirected to protect the rising structures, but it was unnecessary. The harvester entities recoiled from the energy pulsing through them, drawing back like predators burned by unexpected flame. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy hesitated. The obelisk spoke in unison, their voices resonating through every frequency on Earth. Auditory, electromagnetic, even neural. Defensive barrier initializing. Synchronization at 20%. Humanity, stand ready. But humanity was already far beyond ready. Fear had hardened into refurie. Across the world, military leaders, scientists, hackers, engineers, and ordinary citizens united in a way never seen before. The global net surged with collaboration. Quantum physicists shared theories in real time with weapons engineers. Medical researchers studied the bodies of those touched by the shadows and survived with unexplained resilience. In an underground lab in Colorado, a group of scientists led by Dr. Renito examined a harvester fragment retrieved by a drone before it disintegrated. Under electron analysis, they discovered the fragment was not composed of matter as humans understood it, but of compressed data, encoded consciousness. The harvesters were not consuming bodies, they were consuming souls, the totality of human identity. What if that's their weakness? Dr. Ida muttered. They devour consciousness because they cannot generate it. They feed on thought because they are incapable of true life. Amara Ellison received the same data moments later in Geneva. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the silhouettes of harvester entities coiling above the horizon like an ocean of living night. She turned to General Thorne. "Sir," she said quietly, "I don't think we're just defending Earth. I think we're activating a weapon that has been waiting since the birth of mankind." "And what weapon is that?" Thorne asked. Mara looked at the obelisk as its energy surged upward, connecting with beams from the other awakened sites. Above Earth, a vast geometric pattern formed, glowing with fierce, blinding light, a lattice of energy that pushed at the harvester entities, reducing their advance. "Earth itself," she whispered. "The planet is the weapon, and we are its trigger." As if hearing her words, the obelisk's surface parted, revealing a chamber within. Steps descended into darkness. Without hesitation, Mara stepped forward. The walls pulsed with living energy, responding to her touch. Each step she took sent ripples of light flowing down the corridor, awakening systems untouched for millions of years. At the chamber's center was a pod. Inside it floated an orb of light, flickering with images of stars, galaxies, histories long forgotten. Not a power source, a memory core. Mara reached out, the core reacted instantly, surging into her palm, flooding her mind with visions. Humans walking among alien species, wielding technology that shaped stars, commanding vast fleets in wars against titans made a void. She saw Earth not as a planet, but as a fortress, its orbit once ringed with colossal rings of energy. And she heard a voice, not alien but human. "We fled here. We sealed our legacy in the planet itself. We left our future selves a weapon and a curse. The harvesters are not our gods, they are our enemy. And they have forgotten the one truth that birthed the stars." Mara fell to her knees as the chamber shook. The harvesters, sensing the activation, unleashed their full power. Reality rippled. Time stuttered, the sky screamed. General Thorne, watching from above, barked into his communicator, "Dr. Ellison, what's happening down there?" Mara rose slowly, eyes blazing with light not her own. "They made one mistake," she said softly, her voice layered with echoes of countless ancestors. "They thought we were prey." Mara Ellison stepped from the chamber of the obelisk, her footsteps echoing in a rhythm that no longer belonged solely to her. Every heartbeat was synchronized with Earth's awakening. The other obelisks pulsed in answer, forming a network, a neural lattice that encircled the globe. The harvesters shrieked in frequencies that splintered mountains and boiled the seas, but their advance was halted. The lattice held firm, and in that moment humanity saw them clearly, not as invincible gods, but as parasites recoiling from the light of something greater. General Thorne watched Mara ascend the final steps and emerge into the raging storm. Her eyes glowed with threads of living energy. He raised his rifle instinctively, but hesitated when she looked at him, not with alien detachment but with fierce, blazing humanity. "The planet remembers us," she said, her voice resonant, carrying through the thunder. "We are not its children." All around them, the ground trembled. The obelisks unleashed streams of white gold energy into the sky, converging at a single point above the atmosphere. A radiant sphere formed, Earth's heart, laid bare for the first time in untold eons. The harvesters sensed what was coming and surged forward, abandoning stealth in favor of brute force. Their shadows thickened, merging into colossal shapes that blotted out the stars. With every second, they devoured more of reality. Cities flickered, people vanished as time bent and warped. But humanity did not break. In bunkers, in streets, aboard aircraft and submarines, survivors clasped hands, soldiers, scientists, children, refugees. All of them felt it, pulse in their bones. A whisper of something older than fear. The planet was speaking to them. Not in words, but in memory. Visions flashed before billions of minds. They saw the first ones. Humans not as they were now, but as they had once been. Towering beings of light and matter, architects of galaxies. They had fought the harvesters when the universe was young and losing. When defeat was imminent, they did not beg for mercy. They chose exile, discarding their power, seeding their consciousness into a new evolutionary path on a hidden world. They stripped themselves of memory and became mortal. They became human, not weak, not primitive, dormant. The harvesters had not come to harvest a new intelligence. They had come to finish an ancient war. And humanity, forgotten gods reborn in flesh, had just remembered who they were. From every obelisk, tendrils of light flowed into the sky, forming a single beam that pierced the heart of the harvester swarm. The void screamed. Space itself twisted as the harvesters lashed against the beam, trying to consume it, but the light was not energy. It was identity, the combined will of every human being who had ever lived. Billions of consciousnesses cried out in unison, not in despair but in defiance. The beam expanded, weaving itself into a colossal lattice across the planet's upper atmosphere. The harvesters struck it with tendrils of annihilation, but the lattice held. It adapted, evolved, countered. The first harvester entity broke apart with a thunderous crack that echoed across continents. The shadows destabilized, flickering as humanity's awakening surged through the network. Mara raised her hands, and the obelisk responded. She could feel every heartbeat on Earth, every mind, every soul. The planet's core linked with her consciousness, showing her the final step. "General," she said softly, "give the order." Thorn didn't ask what she meant. He simply nodded. "All units," he said, voice unshaken despite the apocalypse unfolding around him, "stand ready. This is humanity's world, and we take it back." Now, all at once, humanity unleashed everything. Fighter jets, railguns, orbital cannons, even improvised weapons were synchronized through the obelisk network. Bullets became more than metal. They carried harmonic disruptors tuned to the frequency of the harvester's existence. Shockwaves of synchronized fire lanced into the sky, striking the shadow entities. For the first time, human weapons struck true. Each impact shattered a harvester into fragments that writhed and dissolved into nothing. The earth roared. From the oceans, ancient structures rose, metal spires and rings that emerged like the bones of titans awakening. They locked into position, forming an orbital barrier of blazing light. Across the planet, entire mountain ranges unfolded to reveal buried cannons that had slept since before the rise of dinosaurs. They powered up with the heartbeat of the world, each pulse a defiant growl aimed at the sky. In the upper atmosphere, the harvester overmind manifested. A colossal sphere of living void swirling with billions of stolen consciousnesses. It gazed down at Earth with unbridled hatred. It spoke not in words, but in inevitability and overwhelming pressure of despair pressing on every mind. It tried to drown humanity in their own fear. But fear no longer had a home here. Humans across the world lifted their heads. In shelters and command centers, in burning cities, they screamed back, not in terror but in fury. The lattice pulsed. Mara felt the overmind's attention focus on her. It saw in her the heart of the awakening. It plunged into her mind, trying to consume her identity. But what it found, there was not one life. It found all of them, every ancestor, every fallen hero, every forgotten soul who had ever resisted the night. Humanity was not a single species, it was a legion. In a voice that was both her own and not her own, Mara spoke the words encoded in the foundations of Earth. "You harvested the weak, you consumed the fearful, but you have never faced the children of the first dawn." The obelisks unleashed their final surge. The earth became a star. A wave of blinding light exploded outward, tearing across the sky, annihilating harvester entities in an instant. The overmind howled as its form disintegrated, its stolen legions freed from torment. The rifts in the sky collapsed, sealing shut as though reality itself were stitching its wounds. Silence fell, the light faded, the shadow was gone. Mara collapsed to her knees, gasping. The obelisk dimmed, returning to dormancy. The orbital rings sank slowly back into the crust. The awakening had ended. General Thorn approached her, offering a hand. "Is it over?" she whispered, looking up at the sky where stars now burned more brightly than ever before. "We won a battle. But the war, the real war, is still out there." She stood, her eyes filled with ancient fire. "And this time, humanity will not hide. We are the last flame. And we are done being silent." High above them, a single star flickered and flickered back as if answering the call. Humanity had been prey. Now, humanity would become the hunter.